Apparently, it's International Blinding Hypocrisy Week, and nobody thought to tell me.
In my life, in my life, in my life, in my life.
Hey, remember when people like me were saying that punching people in the street wasn't a good way to advance the political discourse, and people were disagreeing, and journalists were writing articles about how it was perfectly okay to punch people you had political and social disagreements with? Well, the shoe's on the other foot now. Congressman Jian Forte, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, has just been elected in the US. He's a Republican, probably a shitbird, but there you go. But he's in trouble. He's getting a severe tutting in the media for body slamming a Guardian journalist. And who hasn't wanted to do that at some point? And all the people who have previously been saying, yes, it's perfectly okay to punch people you have disagreements with, are now bemoaning that violence is now an everyday part of politics and saying this is bad and wrong. And it's amazing how when it happens to someone you care about, your perspective entirely changes. Me, I don't care who it is, it doesn't matter. You shouldn't be engaging in violent activity with anyone when your disagreements are purely verbal. But I hate to say I told you so, but then we've got Katie Hopkins, who has lost her LBC radio show, apparently over a tweet in which she mistakenly said final solution, which was then swiftly corrected. Of course, everyone hates Katie Hopkins. I hate Katie Hopkins. She's a fucking terrible human being. But so what? She wasn't acting in her capacity as a presenter at LBC. She was expressing a private opinion, albeit publicly, on her own platform on Twitter, about an issue that's got people riled up, her as well, probably, after the bombings in Manchester. If there's any time for there to be a bit of leeway, that's the one. And why do you think LBC hired her in the first place? Because she spouts shit like this, because she's controversial, because she draws attention, because she provokes conversation, leading Britain's conversation. Isn't that what it's supposed to stand for? The whole title? And again, hypocrisy, because it's someone you disagree with, and to be absolutely fucking clear, I think she's a terrible human being as well. But because it's someone you disagree with, you're absolutely fine with her being censored. Well, this is a problem, okay? And it doesn't just affect people like her. If you express a political opinion on your Facebook, your employer might pick up on it and fire you, or a prospective employer might not hire you. That's wrong. Who cares? So long as you're not Sieg Heiling in the aisle at Tesco, who gives a fuck? You can dress up as Hitler and rant on a street corner for all you like. As long as you can stack a shelf, why should they give a shit? It doesn't make any sense, and that goes for celebrities like this too. And yet it brings all these people who are supposedly liberal out of the woodwork, making excuses for censorship. And it is censorship. Free expression doesn't mean everyone has the right to a radio platform, but it does mean that you shouldn't have that access taken away just for expressing an opinion like that, particularly when it's not even on that radio show. It is censorship, and increasingly, as I keep banging this drum, and will probably be banging it to my grave, as the public square becomes privately owned, we need to extend protections of civil rights into that private sphere. We already do. We already say companies can't turn people away on the basis of race, or the basis of minority status. We already do that. So why can't we enforce a universal and fundamental human right like free expression onto private businesses? It's necessary when choke points like Twitter and Facebook and YouTube control the dialogue to such a huge extent. We need those protections. It is censorship. Free speech is speech without consequence, because if there's consequence, then it's not free. Getting fired is an unreasonable consequence. Getting shot, like happened to Charlie Hebdo, is an unreasonable consequence. So don't come to me excusing consequences. Well, you can say what you like, there's just consequences. You can say what you like in North Korea, you're just going to get strapped to an anti-aircraft cannon and fired across the border if you do. Bullshit. Hypocrisy. Nonsense. If it was Laurie Penny being fired from whatever rag she writes for at the moment for saying some hugely insensitive thing post-bombing about how it's all men and something to do with toxic masculinity, which are things I've seen other people tweeting about, and she got fired for that, you'd be up in arms. I'd be up in arms. That would be wrong too. Examine your prejudices and try to apply principle universally and evenly if you can. Nobody's perfect, but we can at least try, rather than completely embracing this subjective political bias that you have. And then we've got Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman is coming out soon. Lots of people have been looking forward to this, but like the Tories in our general election, never put it past someone's ability to fuck things up at the final hurdle. So at least one cinema is advertising an entire woman-only screening. Okay? Some people have got upset about this, and those people are being attacked in all sorts of ways. Cry me your male tears, etc, etc. And the excuses given for doing this are that it's the feminist thing to do. It's about female empowerment and all this. Never mind that Wonder Woman was originally created as a dentist's BDSM wank fantasy. Let's just ignore that part of comics history. Never happened at all. No, it's entirely about women's empowerment and strength. So the excuse for this possibly illegal gender segregated screening is that it's feminism. Strange, really. I mean, feminism's all about equality, isn't it? Treating the genders the same, not discriminating. I mean, we all know it's about gender equality, right, kids? Now, whether you agree with the complaint or not, I don't think it's that hard to grok. You're being told you can't go to an event because of your gender by people who are insisting on gender equality and that discrimination on gender is bad and wrong. It seems obvious, whether you agree with it or not, that why people would be upset with that. It just seems patently, blatantly, absurdly obvious to me, but apparently not, because trying to explain it to people is like trying to teach a dog to do a cart trick. It doesn't happen, it doesn't penetrate. Subjective bias and hypocrisy again. But the absolute prize for the biggest amount of hypocrisy in the week, the singularity of it, the pure quintessence of double standards, goes to the events at the City University of New York. So, Linda Sarsour, who, if you don't know, is an activist who was one of the main people behind the Women's March, but despite being behind the Women's March is also a devout Muslim and pro-Sharia law and makes excuses for terrorism, all kinds of stuff. Anyway, for whatever reason, the City University of New York thought she would be a good person to come and give a commencement speech. Fair enough, free expression, they can invite who they like and have them talk. Don't approve of their choice, would argue against it and so on for obvious reasons, but there you go, at the end of the day it's their choice and that's fine. But no, Pamela Geller and some politician whose name I forget, and Milo fucking Yiannopoulos turned up to this event with a protest demanding that she not be allowed to speak. Milo Yiannopoulos. Didn't he do some free speech rallies? Hasn't he been deplatformed from various places because of his supposed political views and so on? So Milo Yiannopoulos is at a protest to get a speaker deplatformed from a university. Yeah. Sure, a Linsky Rule 4 and all the rest, but it's just breathtakingly hypocritical. But it doesn't really stop there, because then on the other side of the thing you've got the people who've been shutting down people like Milo from having their speeches and so on at universities, suddenly crying free speech and how it must be protected and she should have the right to speak and all the rest of it. So everyone involved in this whole situation is fucking terrible. And even worse, there was a slight scuffle involving one person who was not severely injured in any way, and yet plastered over newspapers everywhere. It's violence erupts at CNUY protest, blah 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 blah. And, meanwhile, we've got a guy that many people were trying to defend who was attacking people with a bike lock, who's finally been arrested. So a slight scuffle, which the person then reports themselves and seems to be fine, versus people getting physically brained with a bike lock. Human beings were a mistake. Zang.